Originally debuting in the third Sonic entry, Knuckles was originally Sonic's rival, and this was indicated by a similar yet different design. Sonic was a blue hedgehog, Knuckles was a red echidna, and while he could still run fast, his emphasis was on power and his abilities to glide and break through walls, making for an interesting contrast to the titular character's speed. With his trademark knuckled gloves, Lego looking shoes and dreadlock style hairdo, Knuckles quickly became a popular character after his debut, and it's truly a miracle that creators didn't give him a Jamaican accent and call him Dreads the Echidna like they originally intended. The character has had his fair share of fun with accents at a much later date, mind you. He was originally created by developer Takashi Yuda, who didn't intend for him to be any more than a supporting character. While in the modern day that's certainly become the case to an extent, Knuckles has had a storied past, starring in his own games and a staggering amount of Sonic the Hedgehog titles. There's even a rumour that The Rock is going to play him in a sequel to the Sonic movie, which would literally be incredible. Today I'm going to look at how the character has evolved across 2 decades worth of Sega related media, as well as his transcendence into being a living meme and one of the franchise's most popular characters. I'll show off what I think is his best design, and I invite you to let me know if you disagree with me. I won't cover all of his designs, just the ones that stand out to me, so let me know if there's any that you personally love that didn't make my list. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see, it's much appreciated. I'm the artist Mark Flynn, and today let's find out which Knuckles design I think truly is best. Before we get started today, I'd just like to thank Skillshare, who have sponsored this episode. If you aren't familiar with Skillshare, they are an online learning community with thousands of inspiring courses. There's tons of different courses available, broken down into different genres, ranging from graphic design, typography, animation, character design, music, you name it, they've got it covered. I discovered a really cool course, Simple Character Animation, Create a Walk Cycle with Do It by Fraser Davidson. I was surprised actually just by how much I got out of the course in a short period of time. The course talked me through how to design a simple character in Illustrator, how to import it into After Effects and actually animate it and get things moving. Both of these bits of software are really new to me, I haven't really used them before, and by the end of it I was actually really impressed with what I'd created despite how basic it was. In fact, after I'd finished the course, I felt so confident that I went back a day later and kind of modified what I'd done and created this really crude but somewhat cute version of Sonic the Hedgehog running through his own run cycle. Even though I deviated from what the course had told me, it kind of showed me that I had actually learned a new skill and was incorporating it in a way that worked for me. That was just one of my experiences with Skillshare, and I can't wait to actually do some more courses and learn some new skills from there. But thankfully, this isn't just an experience for me. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free 2-month premium membership so you can explore your creativity. So if you have any skills that you're looking to hone or would just like to develop a new skill entirely, I would really recommend giving the free trial a go. 2 months is plenty of time to do a course. I learned how to do an animation rig in less than a day, so just imagine what you could actually do with that time. I was really happy just to be able to learn something new, put it into motion and come away thinking, hey, I could actually do that again. So thank you to Skillshare once again. Let's get back to the video. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 released in 1994, and it saw Knuckles make his debut as a foil for Sonic and an aid to Eggman. He made an impact from the get-go, knocking the emeralds loose from Super Sonic's grasp, laughing in his face and heading for the hills. In these games, the character had a 16-bit sprite that was very much in line with Sonic's from the same title. Similar form factor was apparent in his sprite work, as he really gave off a cheeky villainous vibe while still feeling very much like a Sonic-style character. When compared side by side, Knuckles has an ever so slight height advantage over Sonic, with a large chest which illustrates the physical strength he has over him. His game sprites were in line with much of the game's promotional artwork, which admittedly did differ somewhat between regions. I'm not sure what was going on with the European version at all, if I'm completely honest. Not a fan of these glove belts. The best of the bunch, in my opinion, was the art which graced the Japanese box. Here he was similar to classic Sonic's design, but with a pointier nose area and again a stronger upper body. He's a much smoother character around the edges, and while the dreadlocks and Knuckles obviously stand out as key differences, he also has a different style of shoe completely, yellow, red and green, incorporating a metal plate with Lego style mould. These Lego shoes got massacred in some of these alternate versions. Sacrilege. He also doesn't feature tanned arms like Sonic, and his chest fur highlights a white ring rather than Sonic's skin coloured circle. I think Sega decided this was the ultimate design of his classic form. It got revamped a few years back with a simpler colour palette and thinner line art, and has been present in a ton of merchandise that I've seen throughout the years. The similarities of Sonic and Knuckles' character designs was a good hint for where the franchise would head, as Knuckles would return following Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles later the same year. Knuckles would be playable this time around, and with the new add-on cartridge, he was also playable in Sonic 2 and 3. He looked the same as he did before, mind you. Knuckles' popularity coming out of these games would actually lead to him getting his own game in 1995. Knuckles Chaotix was a spin-off title for the failing 32X add-on for the Mega Drive, and it didn't fare too well, gameplay or sales-wise. This was another typical representation of Knuckles as we've come to expect by this point, but his sprites were upgraded from 16 to 32-bit, giving him a suitably updated look for gameplay. It's a smoother sprite with more detailed shading and colour depth, though it does wash his palette out slightly, and has him looking more pink than red. Personally, I don't like this look as much as his original sprite, but I appreciate that they were trying to do something new with the look and feel of the game. It does manage to give it its own identity, even if that is a futuristic nightmare with a disgusting mix of colours. Outside of the games, while Knuckles is notable for his appearance in Sonic Underground, as quite frankly one of the most off-model, badly drawn and animated characters of all time, he'd have a few more notable appearances in Sonic the Hedgehog related media that I was really fond of. Fleetway's Sonic the Comic was a big part of my childhood, and I really loved how a lot of issues portrayed the character. He was basically classic Knuckles, but a lot of the art gave him this energy and attitude I never really felt was there in this video game artwork at this point. He felt like he should be taken seriously, which is something the modern games lack. But the king of cartoon Knuckles designs definitely came with his appearance in the Sonic the Hedgehog anime movie, which gave him a new bit of style that fitted his boss-like demeanour. A hat. They added a hat. While this could be a nice little reference to Fang the Sniper, it seems like this adaptation wanted to allude to the character's previous emerald protection as treasure hunting, and made him more of an Indiana Jones style adventurer. Other than that, he looked quite faithful to how he'd looked previously. The only other small tidbit was the colours on his shoes are ever so slightly altered, as the red and yellow colours have switched around. His hat would also make its way into some of the Archie comic series too, and then it would never be seen again. 1998 would bring Sonic Adventure to the table, the first truly 3D Sonic the Hedgehog game, and Knuckles would of course appear as a playable character once again. Not much about his design at its core was changed, but like Sonic, the style he was presented in made him seem more like a teenager with an attitude and in-your-face design that was much bolder than the classic titles. Despite Sonic growing some new lengthy legs, character concept sheets highlight that the intention was still there to have Knuckles maintain a slight height advantage. His in-game model does very much look how you'd expect the classic character to appear in 3D, and it's a definite visual step up from his other attempts at 3D up to this point. I've always personally loved the low poly model from Sonic R though. The model was updated when the game was ported to the GameCube. It's personal preference, but I've always preferred the original model from the Dreamcast in comparison, as I think the whole shiny look they go for in this remaster just doesn't land as successfully. Like Sonic, Knuckles did have some 3D renders created for the game's promotional material, but the biggest change came with Sonic Adventure's new artwork style. Thick line art and shading with bold colours and contrast would stylistically make up this design, which would also add some slight new details to Knuckles' design, such as purple eyes, which caused nowhere near as much as an outcry as Sonic's green eyes did, and a Fang-style tooth that's also clearly visible. This look would personally be refined much more with Sonic Adventure 2, with the artwork maintaining a similar style, though slightly more angular and polished. Knuckles' character model would be upgraded too, with his mouth seeming to be a much darker tan colour than it had appeared to be in Adventure. Sonic Advance would also adapt a very similar style of artwork to these games, though this was even more angular and pointed than Sonic Adventure 2, and much more condensed in scale. This look would be recreated within the game's character select screens, as Knuckles would again appear in this debut entry on the Game Boy Advance as a playable character once again. There was a key difference to game sprites in this game, as Sonic Team had a much smaller screen resolution to work with, so the sprites themselves were smaller as a result of this. This led to a creation of a sprite for Knuckles smaller in scale, with some new features and details. The smaller sprite does lose a little bit of Knuckles' chest size and depth, but features a much bolder red colour palette, an outline for the character, eye colour for the first time in a sprite, and even his shoes somehow seem to feature more detail despite the smaller size. It's a really nice sprite that looks incredible in motion. I'm not sure if it necessarily holds the same charm to me as the original did, but it's a really fascinating inclusion on a different style of console. Future games would also experiment more with the style of artwork these games use successfully. Both Sonic Battle and Sonic Riders use very similar art, however Knuckles' colour palette lacks the same level of contrast. In the case of Battle, he is far more angular and sharp around the edges, whereas Riders opts to use a far more sketch-like shading style. 2D artwork would be abandoned for foreseeable years, as Knuckles would maintain his design and go through a number of primarily 3D looks between his in-game models and official renders. Both Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog feature really glossy models for the character, which I'm not going to lie, I hate. I'm really happy they left this style behind them when they moved on to HD consoles, and I especially hate the renders present in Heroes. Too much shine. Sonic 06 would continue this, and like Sonic from the same game, there's really not too much different here from Adventure, other than a new sense of CG polish and super long legs. This altered slightly between 06 and the future games, as a lot of the characters in this game were quite lanky, but the render and models are very similar from this generation onwards regardless. This Knuckles, who most notably appeared in Sonic Generations, felt a bit more refined in my opinion. The quality of the render is better, and his proportions are slightly stockier. This version of the character has appeared in tons of spin-off games, racing games, Smash Brothers cameos, etc, and is one of the most prominently featured versions of the character, with slightly modified versions of it still appearing in relatively recent games such as Sonic Forces. There is an experiment that took place before he got here though, that is definitely worth mentioning. The announcement of 2014's Sonic Boom definitely sent a significant shockwave through the Sonic fandom, with a reveal of a new game and designs for the whole cast. The response was pretty negative, which is actually quite hilarious to think about in 2020 after we've seen what happened with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. But focusing on Knuckles, remember how I've mentioned he has always just been a wee bit taller and stronger than Sonic? Well, in this reimagining of the franchise, they certainly did hone in on this element. This Knuckles is an absolute behemoth. He towers over the rest of the Sonic cast, and they've really changed up his design quite drastically. His core features are the same, but he is basically a meathead in this iteration. This Knuckles apparently hit the gym on every single day of game development. Like the rest of the cast, he has added sports tape surrounding his body, notably tying up his arms, which I won't lie, does fit his design probably a little bit better than it does the other characters, given the palette he already had. He now has opposable fingers on his gloves, as well as the knuckles that protrude from them. The drastic change of this design helped create a negative perception to the game before it even launched, and when it did release with such a buggy, botchy debut, it really did doom the reimagining of the franchise. A lot of time has passed since 2014, and Sonic Boom is actually held in a much better regard than when it was released. The accompanying TV series breathed light into these new character designs, establishing Knuckles as a popular bit of comic relief, mainly played as an overconfident idiot meathead and displaying occasional moments of intelligent brilliance. It's a design that I personally hated to begin with. I think it looks quite hideous in the game itself, but when it comes to the show, I now think of it quite fondly. It's so out there, wildly different and ridiculous, I just can't not smile when I see the character on screen. Following up Boom, Knuckles fell into much more classic territory like the rest of the Sonic crew, returning as one of 3 main playable characters in Sonic Mania. This game introduced an updated sprite for Knuckles, remaining very faithful to his former design from the Mega Drive era, and adding slightly more colour and detail. It's a 32-bit sprite that feels like a logical evolution, and it feels like it takes influence from Knuckles' Chaotix's colour palette. Again, I personally do prefer the colour scheme present in the sprite of old, but I appreciate the improvements they've made. As well as this, the game reintroduced a classic-inspired art style for promotional material, but the game's intro cutscene saw Knuckles featured in the same style as Tyson Hesse's Toei-inspired Sonic design. It's a great toon look which emphasises a lot of the character's original cockiness and charm that was present in the Mega Drive games, and it works super well at portraying Knuckles' personality in a cute pint-sized fashion. As always, picking a design is definitely something I'm going to struggle with this week. Knuckles is one of those characters that has had such a great basic design that even when he steers off into crazy redesign territory, it's quite a challenge to stay mad at him. His classic look established a great rival of Sonic, and he grew into a prominently featured character before somewhat being pushed into the background. But the Knuckles from the Pakistani McDonald's advert easily takes the title of best design in my, yeah, you're right, it's too obvious, I'll pick something else. I really enjoyed Knuckles' looks from Shadow the Hedgehog onwards. The CG style is a really polished look for the character that builds on his obviously brilliant original design, and Sonic Mania brought the character into a style that is synonymous with my favourite of Sonic looks. But I'd say Sonic Adventure 2 gets the best design nod from me. This design is personally the best of both worlds for Knuckles. He has an awesome 3D model, one of his best, and his art really does make the character much more visually striking to me. The slightly angular, thick line work goes really well with his dreadlocks and the lankier style of characters present in this game. It actually suits him well, as he has always leaned a little bit on the taller end. Throughout the game, even the accessories he picks up fits well with his design. While I hated these in Adventure 1, Adventure 2's actually give him some unique traits that I really enjoy. So that's it from me, but what did you think? Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments section below. Again, a big thank you to Skillshare for supporting my channel with this video. Don't forget to check out the free trial if you're keen to learn some new skills. I'd also like to thank my patrons who helped make this video possible, and give a special shout out to Proggy Froggy and Slug Slade, who are donating at the top tier. If you'd like to support the channel, please do consider doing so on Patreon.